It all started on a Wednesday morning that felt like any other. The roosters were already crowing by 6 a.m. The dew clung to the tall grass like pearls, and the low hum of my tractor echoed across the pasture as I did my usual pre-breakfast rounds. Out here, on the edge of a sleepy little county most folks couldn't point out on a map, you get used to silence, honest, hard-working, peaceful silence. So when I saw tire tracks across my north fence line, leading straight through a gap that hadn't been there the night before, my stomach twisted like barbed wire. I own a modest 14-acre spread, not a ranch big enough for cattle drives, but it's mine. I worked for over a decade to afford this land, pouring my savings into every fence post, seed, and repair job. That land doesn't just feed me, it defines me. That's why the idea that someone had trespassed, cut their own little path through my fence, and thought I wouldn't notice lit a fuse inside me I hadn't felt since the last time I got cheated in business years ago. I parked the tractor and followed the tracks on foot, boots squishing against the soaked soil. They led me to the western boundary, just where the neighborhood line starts, an HOA development that sprang up 2 years ago like a rash, full of pastel houses and pristine sidewalks. I never had a problem with neighbors before, but ever since that HOA moved in and crowned themselves lords of the cul-de-sac, it's been a slow-burning war. That's where I first saw Rhonda Willoughby. Late 50s, always in linen pants 2 sizes too tight, and those massive bug-eyed sunglasses that scream HOA president like a badge of petty tyranny. She was pacing my property line, clipboard in hand, barking into her phone like she was giving battlefield orders. I stepped through the cut wire and cleared my throat. "Morning," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "You lose something on my land?" She didn't flinch, didn't even look surprised. "This whole section," she waved her hand dismissively over my field, "technically falls within the extended community assessment zone. You haven't maintained compliance." I blinked. "You cut my fence." She smiled thinly, like she thought she was teaching a child a lesson. "You left no signage to indicate this area wasn't shared access. Our landscapers assumed it was an abandoned buffer lot." I laughed, one of those dry, sarcastic chuckles you let out when reality is too stupid to argue with. "Lady, I pay taxes on this land. I dug every inch of irrigation myself. You think abandoned means you can just roll in and claim it? It's about neighborhood standards, Mr. Hanson. We simply can't have unkempt fields lowering property values." That was the first time I saw red. I pointed to the fence line. "That's a private barrier. You crossed it. You damaged it. That's criminal trespassing and destruction of property." She waved me off, like I was being dramatic. Then she got in her Lexus and peeled off, leaving me with a broken fence and a head full of rage. I thought it was over. I fixed the fence, posted clearer signs, even called the sheriff's office to file a report. But the deputy fresh-faced kid who still said "sir" every other sentence said unless I had proof of her personally cutting it, it'd be tough to press charges. That's when I knew I needed a plan. Not revenge, exactly. But I wasn't about to let some HOA queenpin treat my land like her backyard playground. I bought motion-triggered trail cameras and posted them around the perimeter. Discreet but effective. I even rigged one to a solar panel, just in case she got curious again. A week went by, then 2. Just when I thought maybe she'd backed off, the cameras caught her again, this time with 2 other board members. One of them had a measuring wheel. The other had a notebook. They were marking lines across my pasture like it was a football field. That footage changed everything. I downloaded the clips, backed them up on 3 different drives, and emailed a copy to my attorney friend Dale. He'd helped me before with a property line dispute and owed me a favor after I bailed him out of a busted irrigation job last spring. Dale called me 10 minutes later. "You want to sue or scare the hell out of them first?" "Let's start with hellfire," I said. The next morning, I printed enlarged stills of Rhonda and her cronies, caught red-handed mid-stride across my land. I laminated them, stapled them to every tree along the road leading to the HOA gate, and stuck one right on the front of their community clubhouse. A single word in bold across the top: trespassers. The emails came fast, first a vague cease and desist, then a more strongly worded one claiming defamation. I responded with the sheriff's report and the footage. Then I sent them a formal notice of intent to pursue civil damages unless they ceased all incursions and replaced my fence within 14 days. And wouldn't you know it, Rhonda doubled down. She posted a public memo on their community board claiming I was a threat to public cohesion and accused me of installing surveillance devices to spy on their residents. She even called for a meeting to discuss annexing my lot into the HOA for community improvement. That's when I went nuclear. I called in a survey crew, 3 guys with decades of experience and GPS equipment so precise it could map fence posts to the inch. I had them walk the entire perimeter and produce a full boundary certification. Then I filed an affidavit of land ownership with the county, updated my legal protections, and sent a notarized cease and desist signed by Dale to every member of the HOA board. But the piece de resistance came 3 days later. I rented a small herd of goats. Why goats? Because nothing says this land ain't yours like 30 hungry goats chewing their way through every inch of grass Rhonda claimed was unsightly. I pinned them just behind the fence line, in full view of her cul-de-sac. Neighbors gawked. Kids laughed. Rhonda? She called the cops. 2 deputies arrived, looked at the goats, looked at my papers, and shrugged. Nothing illegal here, ma'am. He owns the land. Goats are livestock. You live next to a farm. Rhonda lost it. She screeched about ordinances and bylaws and livestock permits. The deputy held up a hand. Ma'am, this is unincorporated county land, not your HOA handbook. It was glorious. But Rhonda wasn't finished. She tried to block my driveway with orange cones, claiming she needed to conduct an HOA traffic study. I moved them. She filed a noise complaint during harvest week. The deputy who showed up brought fresh eggs from his backyard coop and shook my hand. Then she did the unthinkable. She forged a notice. A fake county order claiming my OLAD water usage codes. Printed it on letterhead she found online. Left it in my mailbox in a manila envelope marked urgent. I took one look at the crooked seal and called the county clerk. He laughed so hard he put me on speaker. They launched an investigation. Within 72 hours, a county officer showed up at Rhonda's door. Not for a friendly chat, for questioning. A week later, the HOA board called an emergency vote. Rhonda was removed as president. 2 other members resigned. And me? I was invited to speak at their next meeting. Not as a VY but as a guest. I walked in with a binder, handed out copies of every document, every screenshot, and every time-stamped VY. Then I said, this isn't just about fences and goats. It's about respect. You don't get to rewrite property lines because you don't like what's on the other side. They listened. They nodded. And when I left, I saw something that surprised me, a welcome sign at the edge of their cul-de-sac. It read, Community welcomes all, even the farmer next door. That night, over a cold beer on my porch, I watched the sun dip behind the hills and felt something I hadn't in months. Peace. But I keep the cameras up, just in case. Because folks like Rhonda, they don't always stay gone. They regroup. They rebrand. And I'll be ready when they do. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA or neighbor who crossed the line? Do you think communities like this help or hurt real residents? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's shine a light on the madness and maybe laugh a little too. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this hit close to home. Because sometimes, the best way to reclaim your land is to remind people it was never theirs to begin with.